Hello everyone, my name is Prasannata Rao. So in this today's video, we'll be looking at an overview of MySQL, which is one of the most popular and widely used relational database systems in the world. And also we'll be covering what are the basic operations of MySQL, that is using what all operations we can manipulate, retrieve and manage the data stored in the databases. So now let's begin by understanding what actually MySQL is. So the first point is relational database management. So basically MySQL is a powerful open source RDBMS. It is based on the SQL, that is the language which is used to manipulate the data, to store the data, to organize the data and to retrieve the data that is stored in a particular database. So here using SQL we are going to store the data into organized tables, and using this SQL commands and storing the data in the MySQL database, it makes easier to manage and retrieve the data. Second is cross-platform compatibility. One another key strength of MySQL is that it supports cross-platform. That is, it can smoothly run on various operating systems like Linux, Windows, Mac OS, Unix, etc. etc. It supports many multiple programming languages like Python, Java, PHP, and it makes it more flexible and developer friendly. Third point is widely used applications. MySQL is extensively used in the web development applications. It serves as the backbone of many platforms including WordPress, Jamola and Drupal. This SQL server or the database system, that is MySQL, is highly reliable, scalable and it supports active community. So now let us look what are the basic operations that we can perform on the MySQL using the structured query language, that is SQL. These operations are also called as CRUD operations. Like we can include it databases, creation of the databases, insertion and retrieval of the data, performing updates and deletions of the data. So now as we have actually understood the theory concept of what is MySQL, now let's move on how actually we can structure the data using basic SQL commands. So this particular slide will be covering three main components, that is creating a database, defining tables and what are the data types that actually SQL includes. So beginning with the how to create a database. So the syntax to create the database using SQL is create database and database name and ending it with the semicolon. So what actually this semicolon means, it terminates the statement, that is a SQL command. This initializes a database with the name we specify to that database. Basically, it acts like a container that will hold all your related tables and records. Then the second one is defining tables. Now as above we have created a database, now it's the turn to define some data into that. So the data that we are gonna define will be in the format of tables having rows and columns. So once the database is created, the next step is to define its structure by creating tables. So the syntax to create a table into a particular database is create table and table name, following with the column name, its data type, and so on the structure goes on. So basically what this command will define is the table name and the lists the column along with the respective data type. So here each column will represent a field in the table and a row will be called as the record or tuple. So the third part is data types. So while defining the tables in a particular database, it is very important to assign some appropriate data type to each the column that we define in that table. For example, if we define a column as id, so as we know that id is always in numerical form, that is in digits. So basically we know that if there are digits in a particular variable, then we assign integer or int data type to that particular column. So there are many data types used in SQL language, that is int for integers, varchar is used for variable length strings, date for date values, and float is used for floating point numbers. So why to choose a particular database? So choosing the right database. So now why to choose the right data type to the columns that we are gonna insert in the table in a particular database. So by choosing the right data type helps us ensure that the data is accurate, efficient, and constant throughout the storage. Together, these elements form the backbone of any structured database, which allows us to store, access, manage, retrieve, and handle the data efficiently. So moving on further, there are many essential operations in MySQL along with creation of the database, updation and all. So inserting and retrieving are the very essential operations that we perform in MySQL. These operations fall under what we call DML, that is data manipulation language. We use this language to insert or to fetch the particular data, or to select a particular data, to delete a particular data. So first one is inserting data. So this command adds a new row of data by assigning value to the specified columns in the table. Firstly, let us all see the theoretical part and further move on to the practicals. So the syntax goes like insert into table name, column 1 comma column 2 values in bracket value 1 comma value 2, and ending the SQL statement within semicolon indicates that the particular SQL command is terminated. So in this syntax, what are we gonna do is we are gonna insert some column with its specific value into the table that we have created in the database. So second is retrieving data. So we use select command to fetch or retrieve the particular data from the table stored in a DBMS, that is data management system. We use this retrieving command to fetch the data that is already stored in a database. It allows the user to read, display the data from the specified column, that is the column which the user have entered in the SQL statement. In this slide, we'll focus on how to modify and remove the data that is stored in our database in the. So first one is updating a record. This command changes the value of a specific column for the records that we match with the given condition. So basically this command is used to modify the data existing in a table. So the syntax is like update table name, set column equal to value where condition, ending the statement with a semicolon. Second one is delete syntax. So this is used to remove records from a table. It deletes the row that meet the specified condition. It is important to note that omitting where clause will delete all the rows in the table. So updating and deleting are very powerful operations, and using them responsibly is a key to maintaining the data integrity, consistency, accuracy in a MySQL database. So as we have covered the theoretical part, now let us move on to the practical part where we'll apply all the syntaxes that we have learned to create a database, to create a table in a database, how to use that database, how to store our information, that is data in that database, how to fetch that data, how to delete that data, how to add rows and columns to that data and all. Now, let us practically see how we use SQL commands to manipulate the data stored in the database. So, to apply this SQL commands, we are going to use a MySQL shell, that is MySQL command line client, that is a text based interface that is going to allow us that or users to interact directly with the MySQL database using these SQL commands that we have learned earlier. Now we'll begin by creating a new database. So to create a new database, we have the syntax create database by specifying the database name as per the user's requirement and terminating the statement using a semicolon. So here I am creating a new database named Prasannata, and I am terminating the statement with a semicolon. So our database creation query is affected with zero error. So the next step is to create or define tables into that database so that we can store the information in that particular table or in that particular database. So firstly, now let us view the database we have created. So the query to view the database that we have created is show databases ending with the semicolon. So yeah, there are mainly 4 databases in this command. So here what I have done is I have inserted product ID as 101 with its name T and cost 10. So we are getting an error, that is unknown column T in field list. So here what happens is 101 is an integer, T is an variable, and 10 is again an integer. So one basic rule that we have to always keep in our mind is that while passing the variables, we have to always write them into single quotes. So we have to give single quotes to the variables. So see, now the error has been removed and the query has been affected with 0 errors. So now I'll add multiple attributes to this. So here what I've done is I have added many more, that is total 5 attributes to the table named products in the database named Prasannata. So now we have to view this table, that afterwards we will get a fixed schema of this table. So the syntax to view the table is select star from the table name, that is products, ending it with the semicolon. So basically what this SQL command is gonna do is it is gonna show us the whole table with its particular values. So see, here we are getting ID, name, cost with 5 attributes with its ID, names and specific costs. So the next query that we are gonna do is updation. For example, suppose I wanna update the tea to milk, then the syntax will be update the table name, that is products, set the attribute name, that is name, equal to, in quotation I wanna set tea to milk. So sorry, here it will be set name. So here what we have to do is we have to set the new name where there will be a particular value. So instead of t, what I want to do is I want to store milk instead of t. So here I'll be writing milk where id equal to 1 not 1, because the instance t is having the id 1 not 1 ending it with semicolon. So yeah, our query is affected with 0 errors. So now let us see what the table now actually looks like, which is the modified version of the previous one. Again the same query, select star from products. So now we can see that the tuple name from milk has been modified, sorry, the tuple name from tea has been modified to milk. So now let us see the last operation of the CRUD operation, that is create, read, update and delete. So the last operation of our SQL command in MySQL is gonna be delete. So this particular command delete is used to delete a particular row, tuple or a record from the table. So the syntax is like delete from table name where attribute is equal to value ending it with a semicolon. So here we are going to use the where clause, which is applied to apply a specific condition. So the syntax is delete from table name, that is products, where, so suppose I want to delete the poha having id 103 and cost 50 rupees. So I want to delete the third instance from the table. So it will be delete from products where id equal to 103. So a query has been executed with 0 errors. And now let us view the modified table which has deleted the third instance from the table. Select star from table name. Yeah, so now we can see that the third instance or record from the table, that is 103 poha cost 50 rupees, has been deleted. So now as we have covered all the CRUD operations of SQL or MySQL, now let us wrap the whole topic of MySQL. So now as we have also covered the theoretical part, that is we have executed all the basic SQL commands, that is CRUD operations practically. So as we come to the end of the session, let's briefly recap the key points from our MySQL video. Firstly, we explored the structured data management and understood how MySQL provides a reliable, efficient platform to store, access, retrieve, and manage the relational data. Nextly, we learned the importance of core SQL. We practiced essential SQL commands like creating a database, viewing all the databases that are available, inserting particular values into the table along with its data type, selecting the whole table, that is viewing the whole table, updating the table, that is modifying a particular value or deleting a particular value. We also learned that scalability and integration of data. We also learned that MySQL is not only capable of supporting large scale applications, but it also integrates seamlessly with various programming languages like Java, Python, PHP, and frameworks, which makes MySQL a versatile choice for developers. Thank you.